And we are live. Angela, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fabulous. This is what I live for now. I'm a
I
reading
know.
fool. I am a reading fool. So thank you.
No, and thank you as well. Because let me tell you, I first of all, I found my book, so I actually have my paper copy today. But meanwhile, I have since acquired the Kindle version. Uh, I think Kindle. No, this is the first edition. Kindle version, second edition, audiobook, second edition. So I'm immersed in all the different modes of media that this particular tome comes in.
And I'm
So
sure
yeah,
the authors love you for
I'm
that.
sure they do. Right. And let me tell
Cha-ching.
you, yeah, folks, if you are listening or watching this show is not sponsored by any of the books,
Mm-mm.
I guess, that we're reading. So yeah, they're loving me right now for all the nickels and dimes and quarters they're getting from me getting these books and all these different mediums and everything. It's ridiculous that way. But I have found that with the audiobook in conjunction with the Kindle book, I am reading faster because
Yes.
I already listened to podcasts at 2x. So I put the book on 2x and I am blazing through it. I mean, it's just like it really makes a difference.
Hmm. I am 1.2, maybe
Hmm.
1.5. 2x is like noise at that point. I
Yeah,
mean, who
I'm
wants to
striving.
listen to people talk fast?
Well,
I
I'm
don't.
striving for 3x. My podcast player,
Really?
it has a 3x setting. I'm up to 2.5. And the only thing that really slows me down is when folks are speaking with accents. Like sometimes the InfoQ podcast, their hosts are from Europe and India, foreign places to me anyway. And so I have to slow it down just to catch their accent a little bit better.
Okay, that's
Otherwise, it's a little bit harder.
that makes sense. Well, welcome.
Yeah.
We're here. We're back. We're on part 3, part
Part
3 of
three.
the DevOps Handbook. We are on part 3. You see it here,
Yes, indeed.
second edition. The
First edition
second,
club.
yes. This part 3 is digging into the first way. On our first episode, we talked about the 3 ways: flow, feedback, and continuous learning. This is on flow. It's a pretty meaty chapter. So let's
Mhm.
get into it.
Yes, indeed. I will say out of the gate, I mean, and I haven't gotten into the rest of the book yet. I'm pacing as per our cadence, but I want to say this is probably my favorite part of the book. I think this is going to be my favorite part of the book because it's speaking to these practices that I know and love, pipelines, continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous deployment, automation across the board. I mean, it was a page turner for me. Some of it was kind of a slog to get through, I will admit. But when they're talking about these case studies and the way that people overcame some of their difficulties by incorporating continuous integration and continuous delivery, chef's kiss. Was loving it.
Yes, there are some great case stories in here. The one from, God, I never remember. There was one
Yeah,
from
exactly.
Google. Maybe was it Google?
There was a case study from Google. I
I
think they were
forget.
talking about their load balancer. No, not their web server, the Google GWS, the Google web server. And
Yes, it was that. It
uh,
was one of those. It was one for a hotel company that must not
yeah,
be named, and then
yeah,
there was something else. There's so many gems in here
yeah,
from people who've done the thing, and they are literally sharing their successes, their trials, and what they've learned. I mean, these are all reading other people's stories are really those teachable moments for you. Like
yeah,
you see yourself in some of these stories and you hopefully react accordingly, right? So
yeah. Indeed, indeed.
anybody see my hat? You see
Yeah.
my hat?
What do you got on there?
All right, so
Is that Eagles? It's got it. No,
that's a fiery phoenix.
it's the Phoenix. Okay.
So I don't know. We'll talk about that some other time. But my name is Scooter Phoenix on
Yeah.
most of the socials except LinkedIn, and this is my motorcycle club I used to be in. I started a
Ah,
motorcycle club many years ago, and this is our
wow.
logo. This is our
That's
logo. So
pretty cool.
I am stunting my own stuff here. It's a woman on a bike. And speaking of stunting your own stuff here, we have these amazing stickers.
We
Oh,
do.
if you see, I still haven't mailed my man stickers yet because I haven't been to the
I'm
post
sitting here.
office.
I'm checking the post box
I know.
every
I'm
day.
sorry. I have my son's birthday gifts I have to mail, my friend's birthday gifts, they will get in the mail. Oh, and I have a surprise for you. A
Oh,
whole
what?
surprise for you. We got swag, babe. It's coming. So
Swag is coming.
maybe I should wait for the swag to get here and then put that in the box with your sticker. So next week we
Yeah.
can just go,
Yes, indeed. I will wait for the swag.
okay.
That
The
for
swag comes
sure.
Friday.
Yeah, yeah, definitely wait for the swag. And Muhammad is saying, "Wow, I don't
He
know if to
needs
the
some
Scooter
stickers.
Phoenix
Like,
or to the sticker or to the swag or what the case is." But yeah, uh,
so let's get
yeah,
into it. Let's get into it
yes,
because
get
we can lollygag all day.
it.
So
No
in
doubt.
part three,
Yeah,
talks about uh the first way, and it kind of goes into continuous delivery. Now, I remember when I used to hear CICD and I would get them confused. Don't ask me why. I just
mhm,
did. And continuous delivery is using automation to deploy changes into your production infrastructure without chaos,
yeah,
meaning
yeah,
the delivery of it is done in a way that you're constantly running tests in the
yeah.
code. It's always in a deployable state. If something goes through and breaks a build, it's the swarm. We pull the andon cord,
Everybody
we
jumps
fix
on.
it. So
Yeah,
there are a lot of principles that are in this section that we'll be sharing with you, but those were just a few.
yeah.
And then we go into chapter 9. That's called Create the Foundations of Our Deployment Pipeline. And automation, babe. Infrastructure is
It's all
code,
about the automation. Yeah,
automation, having a deployment platform that you this is a good chapter.
yeah.
I looked at my notes and I'm like, you're right. This is a
Yes.
good chapter. What were your thoughts on chapter 9? Give me what you
Um.
got.
Well, first of all, having these different environments, dev, test, and they say production. Now, this is one thing that I disagreed with the
Hmm,
authors. I appreciate the mention of dev. Well, first of all, I appreciate the mention of different environments for testing software before it is deployed.
right?
They scaled down to three environments: dev, test, and production. I still appreciate having that staging environment, that fourth environment. And I'll tell you why. The test environment, I want to have it. I call it the Wild West. Anybody who wants to test anything in there, you just go for broke. There's no guarantee that that environment is going to be stable. The development environment is a little bit cleaner, a little bit more stable, and you can actually develop your software in that. Once your feature is developed, you deploy it to the staging environment, and that's where you can run these load tests, feature tests, end-to-end tests without disrupting production. So that's kind of why I appreciate having that sort of uh, like
What about
vacuum of it.
Temple?
I'm sorry.
Implementation. Some people have something called implementation where this is where they do it's basically staging, but
Yeah,
they may have multiple
yeah,
where
yeah.
they're
That's
where
true.
they're doing different types of testing, but it is a what does it call it? It's the green copy. It's definitely green. It's very
Yeah,
similar to the production environment.
yeah.
Yes, it has monitoring. Yes, it has security. It has all those things. So when you're doing your performance testing, you're making sure that this environment that you're doing your business in is so close to prod, you won't get any surprises. No
Yes.
surprises.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the way I think about production. And you
Mhm.
could definitely do it with the blue green environments, and they touch on that as well. And then you
Yeah.
got your production environment where your customer, your clients are depending on that being up. The one thing that I'll reflect on is Facebook and how they talked about they have deployed features that they don't intend to release for 6 months. It's already running in production. They've already deployed it. It's there. They're testing it on live hardware with live traffic. And when they flip the switch,
Mm,
it's a nothing. It's a non-event because they've already gone through all this testing. They've
I love
already deployed it to all these different environments. And it's what they called it dark launching, or and the feature toggling so that they can turn these features on and off
Yeah.
and target different audiences to reveal these features to. And once they get all their testing, then they're like, okay, guys, we've been running this thing for 3 or 4 months, live traffic, everybody's using it. It works. Just let them have it. Turn it on. And it's a non-event.
It is a non. I love
Yeah.
that phrase. It's a non-event. We're just going to go ahead and flip the switch and go on about our business because, yes, I agree. I agree. I agree with you, Muhammad. Stage should be the same. User acceptance testing,
Yeah.
whatever, that should be the same as production. Otherwise, if
Yeah.
you go to build it and it's running in this other whatever you call it, words are bad
Environment.
today.
Yeah.
Another environment,
Yeah.
and it is not close enough.
Yeah.
Imagine being Amazon and doing something, and it's Black Friday, right?
Mhm.
And you're not your environment cannot be tested, performance tested with the Black Friday load because it's not the same environment. That is
Yeah.
not a good look. So mirroring those two environments, Mohammed, is definitely the way to go. So what I liked about, I'm going to go through a couple of gems. I took a couple of notes. My favorite is that all the code, and I mentioned this last week, is
Mhm.
in version control.
Yes.
Yes,
Praise God.
it's ops. We dumping our stuff there. It's dev. It's test. IAC. You have a self-service platform. You're testing. You're monitoring. Your security. All of whatever can be in version code. If it's written, it should be in version control. And when things make sometimes stuff goes wrong. We're all human. We've all seen
Mhm.
it. You having that retrospective to go back and fix things and figure out what went wrong. What I like, I can't remember which chapter was in, but they were talking about, Angie Jones mentioned this one. We'll talk about her
Mhm.
in a minute.
Yeah.
Where write your TDD, writing your unit test, right when you're writing your
Yeah.
code, it's a cheat code. And then when you're going through the, creating your unit tests and doing these other things, there was a story in here where it said if something broke in acceptance or stage or whatever, I can't remember the other stage, everything had to stop. And
Yeah.
it would all hands on deck, pull the cord, pull the andon cord, blow the
Yeah.
whistle, as Gilly the kid would say, and it's too short. But
Too
they
short.
would stop, and everybody would swarm this problem to make sure that it was remedied because we don't want things to be built and then break, right? And
Yes.
having all hands on deck is a very, let's stop what we're doing, let's bring the team together. I think that is such a healthy way to problem solve. There's no silos. That's not my problem.
Yeah.
No, the team comes together, and I appreciate that. So anyway, the ability to explore the why something went wrong, and then immediately write tests and write code that really fixes it is another cheat code.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you got to get everybody working to fix that deployment, because, and the other thing they mentioned, and it's real, if you deploy some bad code and then you deploy some good code after that, how are you gonna like reel out that bad code? It's like, wait a minute, we got to take a couple steps back now to kind of fix things,
Yeah.
as opposed to just stopping what we're doing right now. Okay, let's fix it, let's resolve the problem, and then let's carry on and proceed with good code.
There was another study or case study in here, another organization, we'll get to it, who also said, nope, no more features.
Mm.
They were like, nope, we're going to take this 6 weeks. And they were about to do an IPO. And they were like,
Mhm.
I know this seems as like a really bad time, but I think this is best. And it paid off. And it paid off so
Yeah,
well. So
yeah,
not everybody has that luxury, but again, being able to swarm a problem when it comes up is definitely one of those cheat codes.
yeah,
And automate all the things. That's, I have a sticker on my
yeah.
laptop that's
Eh,
like, yeah, automate.
yeah, and one thing it was a very, very brief mention. They didn't dwell on it, but they mentioned imposter syndrome and working through imposter syndrome using automation and the tools that we have, because anybody can come with their ideas and bring it to the table. If we're all using the same platform, nobody is I want to say better or greater, because we all have the same tools. We bring our innovation and our ideas to the team, and we apply them to the tool. We capture them as knowledge. We develop the code. We code everything or capture everything in code, put that in version control, and then I'll say that imposter syndrome is minimized. It's like
Yes.
you can deploy just the same as the next person because you have the capability and the tools to do that. So I appreciated that they brought that up, and I forget which company again. Folks, there were so many case studies in here and so much goodness that came out.
Yeah.
At least for me, it's hard to keep track of who said what.
Yeah.
But that's why we're here chopping it up to talk about it. But yeah, I did
It was
appreciate that they
Google.
said. Oh,
It was the
Google. Okay.
Google web server.
Okay. Cool.
So there was a mention in the footnote when we were talking about the imposter syndrome where actually in the on the page it said fear becomes the mind killer. So if you're fearful of making a change because you don't want people to have to stay late, or you don't want to be the one, nobody wants to be the one. Fear of causing issues or breaking something will really affect the project as a whole. And the imposter syndrome that can happen from just, I don't want to do it. I'm scared to do it. And think about people who are new to organizations where they don't understand the dynamics. They don't understand that there is that psychological safety, because you don't know that out of the gate. You don't know that off the rip. People can doubt themselves until they get an opportunity to show their worth, to show their work, and then understand, oh, this is a really safe space. Like they mean it when they say there are no bad ideas, don't let fear be the mind killer. We all make mistakes and we learn from them. So yeah, that was a good one. That was definitely a good one.
Yeah.
So we defined continuous delivery, continuous integration. You want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, indeed. And these all you can't have continuous delivery. Well, if continuous delivery is kind of like the middle, right? And deployments on the other end, that's in production,
Yes.
and integrations at the beginning. And
Yes.
that's kind of like the thing that feeds into all of this goodness, right? Because you're bringing your code together on a regular basis. You're working out all the problems. Sometimes even before it hits the repository, if you have git hooks, pre-commit checks on your local system. I've got a couple on my system. So you're checking your code even before you check it in to make sure it's good. So I think with the integration, you're trying to go back as far left in the cycle as you can
to solve
catch all these problems earlier. You can lint on your workstation. You can run tests on your workstation, probably unit tests. They're much smaller than these integration tests, these end-to-end tests, because your environment, as we talked about, is not the same as the production environment where this code is going to be running. It's a little bit different when it's containers, but still it's not the same, right? But you can run these tests on your laptop, your workstation. You check it in. Those same tests are now run again.
Yes.
So everybody can see the hey, you checked in some code.
Transparency.
Repository's been updated. Checks have been run. Code is good. Hey, let's move on to the next thing. If you have continuous integration where it's running the test for you, it may go ahead and deploy your code. And I love working with systems like that where you don't even have to touch it. It's just like, yeah, I'm going to deploy this feature, or I'm just going to check in this code. Okay, you check in your code. It runs the test. The test say, you know what? This code is good enough. Let's go ahead and ship it. Ships it into the next environment, and maybe then you get a notification that says, hey, you want to take a look at this before we push it to production? Look at that. Yeah, it looks good. And then you click the button or whatever the case is, and then you deploy it. And that's a manual deployment. If it was continuous, you wouldn't even be clicking that button. It'd be another robot or a service or something that says, you know what?
Robot.
This code is good enough to go into production. Let's just go ahead and ship it. So again, like this, that's why I say this is probably my favorite section, the chapters of the book.
You're so giddy.
Yes, I am. I really, really dig automation when it comes to integration and delivery and deployment. Yes, indeed.
I love it. I love the fact that you're so giddy. Let's see. We just skipped around a little bit.
Yeah, we're all over
we are literally all over. So hopefully you're reading along. You'll catch up. You'll get some of our stories. In chapter 10, where they started talking about oh geez, TDD.
Test driven development.
Yes, and if you read the pink square on page 161, you will see a name that you might have heard before, who is a friend of ours. We both
Yeah,
know this person named Angie Jones. She is basically Black history. This woman has been in this
I
field for a
know.
very long time. She has patents. She's worked at all the biggest companies. She's a developer. She's a Java champion, and she really extols the virtue of test automation. She is a test automation expert, and then she gives these strategies on how for teams to ship both features and test automation in their
Mhm.
sprints. Like, again, tests, code, they're buddies. They need to work together. Collaboration. That's huge. If you're collaborating with your team, if you're all on the same page about working together, maybe pair programming, you're almost there. Continue with the testers, working with the testers, you're halfway
Mhm.
there. Automate strategically. When you're automating and using testing using APIs and smart design to get coverage across these different scenarios, be smart about it. Be very strategic, and then build incrementally. We've been saying that since the first episode.
Mhm.
Smaller code bites. Don't boil the
Mhm.
ocean. You want to do as little as possible, because one, especially if you're writing tests for it, those are easier to write as opposed to writing tests for a 4,000 page
Yes.
function. Why don't we just bite this out here and do it a little bit smarter? So, um, again, more testing, more automation. Pull the cord when you need to. Hopefully you're in an organization that um, really embodies that safety, where it is okay to, hey, this broke, I need your help, all hands
Yeah.
on deck. So yeah, that's what I had to say about that. Chapter 10 was another good one. You got any more gems from chapter 10 before we skip and
Well,
move to chapter 11?
yeah, well, and again, I'm bouncing all over the place,
Me
but for
too.
that the test driven development collaboration, um, and I don't know if this was mentioned directly in the book, but it kind of came to mind of
Hmm.
when you have a spec, the benefit of pair programming or working or having a developer and having somebody that is a tester working off the same spec
Mm,
helps prevent problems because developer can have an idea of how this thing should be implemented. Maybe they're even doing test driven development and they kind of work it out, the code that is,
yeah.
and they deploy it, but it doesn't really do it's like it's their interpretation of it. But having just another pair of eyes look at it and say, well, if you intend for this feature to work like this and I give it this input, it should return this. So I'm going to write my test that way. And if you test that against the code that somebody else wrote and their interpretation, if it comes together, then okay, we're in agreement. But if there's
Hmm.
something a little off, it's like, well, wait a minute. Well, your code's not passing the test. Let's talk about it. Not in a blameful kind of way, but hey, let's see where the misunderstanding
Yeah.
is, or let's check the spec and kind of work through it that
And
way.
we
So
come with our own biases. Like, we see
we do.
things in our own
Yeah.
mind, and when you go to implement them, or run those tests that someone else wrote, that is it's a communication error in your code. So to be able to uh, talk to your testers and have that kind of relationship, once you vibing like that, and you're able to listen to someone's feedback about how something's working, it opens your aperture a little bit so you can understand what other folks are thinking. And again, getting as many eyes on it earlier in the process is really a good idea.
Yeah.
So what's next?
Well, while we are talking about Angie, I was gonna add one item to the screen here for
Yay.
the folks that are watching. Um, just some of the folks that we recognize from this book, and for the people who are listening, these are people who are mentioned in the case studies: Dwayne H., Angie Jones, Ernest Mueller. Um, they are mentioned by the authors in these case studies, but these are real life people that you can follow
Yes.
on LinkedIn. Like, they are still in the game. The book that we're reading is not history. it's like
Mhm.
it's almost like a working document. It's been around for a while, but these people are
But
still
they
in the
keep
game.
updating it.
They update the book. These people continue to drop gems, so that's why I just invite you to follow them on LinkedIn. I've got on the screen here for the people that are watching live their handles on LinkedIn. If you look them up on that platform, yeah, give them a follow. Tell them you heard about them and the great work that they're doing on the From Cover to Code podcast.
Yes.
you know, and who knows, maybe we will have some of them on the show to talk to us in real time, and you can ask them
Mm.
questions about these case studies, about the work that they're doing now. I think that would be pretty cool too.
So stay tuned.
Yeah, definitely stay tuned for
Stay
that.
tuned. All right. Let's what are we on now?
Yeah, what are we
'Cause we only
wrapping up?
have a few more minutes. So
Yeah,
let's
we're getting
let's
close to time here.
let's get the best nuggets out of the third
Yeah.
part 3, the flow. What are the best nuggets? You already said it. You
Okay.
basically said it.
Yes. One thing that I also mentioned, we talked about testing and testing at scale. They also mentioned the data. Um, and I think you kind of alluded to this with the AWS example. As I go to the comments too, somebody commented here. It was Mohammed coming in saying that definitely things are interesting. But I'm looking at my notes here. Consider the scale of the system when testing. You might have to create databases or data sets that enable
Yes.
testing at the same scale as production. So I've had that case before.
Tell
This is
us.
a testimony. Yes, indeed. Where this is a content management system. We're delivering high scale web traffic, and we're testing with a small portion of the traffic that the site normally gets, right?
Wah, wah.
So yeah, exactly. On our little local systems, whatever. Oh yeah, these features are working great. The code is great. We deploy it and the site crashes immediately. And we're like, well, what the heck? What's going on? So we have to roll back the change, do more testing. Testing looks good, deploy it again, and it's crashing again. So at that point, we're like, it's not happening tonight. Because again, this is back in the day where we couldn't deploy during the day because we
Right.
have to deploy in off hours. So we're deploying middle of the night type of thing. And it's like, let's look at it later on. But come to find out, our testing wasn't robust enough for
Mm.
the traffic that we were getting based on the data that we're using, not necessarily
In scale.
the scale of the system itself, but the way that the data was being accessed at scale under the traffic amount was
Mm-hmm.
not on par with production. So yeah, that was definitely a lesson learned. So if you can match your data, respect your DBAs. You got to love them too. We talk about developers. We talk about operations. Let's give the DBAs some love too, because
Can we
they
though?
be knowing.
They be knowing. And because they've done it for a million years. Shout out Glenn, shout out Don.
Some of your DBAs.
They be knowing.
Yes,
And
indeed.
you can't discount that. And in your scenario, I'm sure there was a DBA in the background going.
Oh yeah. 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 Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Uh-oh, we
Uh,
gotta really
yeah.
so it can be
We did get a
yes.
question here. Question from Corey Ward. How do you convince
Hey
someone to
Corey.
let you make and test with that large scale test data without having an incident or something close to it? Very
Hmm.
good question.
Yeah.
A couple. I will answer this in a couple different ways. We talked about different environments, how you have your staging, your
Yes.
UAT. So you're working in an environment that's not your production environment. Second thing, if you're working with production data, you may be under some, what I want to say, like requirements not to disclose data, not to move people's data around, let them know how you're
Mm-hmm.
using it, et cetera, et cetera. So then you have to come up with some fake data. You have to
Mm-hmm.
change it so that it is representative of the data that you
Or
would use in
redact.
production.
There's
Yeah, yeah,
redaction. That's where your DBAs come in. They can definitely help
yeah,
you
they
there.
with that. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, there are definitely ways to work around that. There are systems that can help you with that, um, and definitely make sure that
And
you're testing on par with production.
so I've heard this term before where they say, you can have as much availability as you can afford. The
Yeah,
same goes true for testing environments. Having
sure.
having enough money to be able to have these types of development environments, the testing in the QA, the stage, um, and the stage that mirrors very closely mirrors your production environment. Not everybody has the infrastructure to do such things, even with the
Yeah,
cloud. Let's be clear. Um, get buy-in to do it. Well,
yeah,
that's the first thing. Getting even getting that far, it will be a conversation with somebody, right? And the culture has to allow for such things. So if you're working in an agile environment, um, you're bringing this to your PI planning. You're talking to people. You're letting people know this is literally buy-in is not the same thing as communicating, but if you communicate effectively and you are a person who is very open. We talked about the superheroes who, when you bring these implementation teams together and you try to pick the
mhm,
best of the best, you want somebody on your team that can reach across boundaries and talk to the people and be able to convince people that this is a good idea. And if having management pushing such agendas,
mhm.
that's immediate buy-in right there. So it
Yeah,
every your mileage may vary, but every organization is going to be a little bit different.
yeah, indeed. And I think I talked about this in the last time we got together was having buy-in, not even from your team and your management, but the other people's teams and management,
Hello.
your clients, your customers, so then you're talking to your manager or your leads or whoever the case may be to say, hey, we should probably be testing with production style data. And they will take that into account. But then if their management or if their customer or their stakeholders come to them and say, hey, or ask the question, hey, are you guys testing with production scale data? Will that help us get our features faster? Or will that make our platform more reliable when it's deployed? Then you have these champions, these advocates that are working on your
Mhm.
behalf, so you can get that buy-in to take the steps that you need. If it's getting a staging environment in the first place, if it's getting the data that you need, if it's getting the time on a load testing
Yep.
service or whatever the case is, yeah, you got to get that buy-in for sure.
Well,
Thank you
this
for the
was
questions.
yes. Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
Yeah,
We appreciate you joining us and sitting in on this conversation. Again, we're on part 3 of the DevOps Handbook, and we are flying through this book.
flying through.
Hopefully, you are flying with us. Next week will be part 4. We'll be talking about the second way, the technical practices of feedback. Feedback,
Yep,
feedback, feedback. Nothing gets
so
done
important.
without feedback. Hey,
Yeah.
Jepson. Oh, I'm
Yeah, we got a couple
so
more
glad.
comments here. Let me bring
Yes.
them to the screen. From YouTube. I think, you know what? I'm going to call you out, Jepson. I think this is the first YouTube
It is.
comment
It
that
is.
we've gotten since we started this podcast. So let's put a stake in the ground, fly a flag, whatever you want to call it, mark this day. Thank you for your comment. And for
Yep.
the folks that are listening, Jepson says, great episode, reading through this book with y'all, and y'all are experiences. LOL. We've got
Yes.
lots of L's. a lot,
We got a lot
lot
of
of laughter.
LOLs
Yeah,
and
yeah, no
L's.
doubt. Yeah,
But this
no
works. This
doubt.
works. Thank you so much. Join us next week, same time, Tuesday, 5:30 p.m.
Yes,
Eastern.
indeed.
We're digging into part 4. And
Part 4.
who let's foreshadow. We don't know
Okay.
what we're going to be reading next. Hit us up on our
Yes.
socials. Give us some
Let me.
suggestions. I mean, the name of the book club is called From Cover to Code. We're going to have to put some coding in there somewhere. And we would love to hear some suggestions, some books that you've read, some books that you've heard about, some books that are on your need to read list, because my list is huge. Like that list.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of stuff I
Yeah.
need to read. Keep coming. We love this to have this conversation synchronously and of course asynchronously. I'm on Twitter. Hit me up here on LinkedIn. Scooter Phoenix on all the socials. And we have Managed Chaos here. We would love to hear from you using the hashtag cover to code.
Cover to code is the hashtag. And I'll get a slide that has our social stuff on there.
Give us a break. We worked all day. Come on.
I know, right? I tell you what, y'all, we are pulling this production together by the skin of our teeth, but we're doing it because it's fun. We want to share our experience with you in a manner of giving back to the community and everything. So yeah, it's a joy for me, and I appreciate being able to chop it up with you, Angela, every week.
Yes, I love it. I love it. We'll see y'all next week, right?
We will see y'all next week.
Thank you for joining us.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.